Welcome to Sustainable Leadership Live. I'm your host, Lisa Danforth, and today I have the brilliant and funny Rich Brooks from Flight New Media. Rich, thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure. I'm very excited that I am here on your show. This is going to be great.
Let's do this, as you said, in the green room. So I'm really excited to be talking to Rich. Rich is a founder of Flight New Media. They have been in business for 25 years. He is an author, a nationally known speaker. He really knows how to stand out online and off. And today we're going to be talking about his remarkability formula, the four lenses of the remarkability formula. How did you come up with this, Rich?
Well, a lot of it just came from years of working with clients and realizing that they didn't have a way that they could stand out. Or if they did have a way, they didn't even realize it. And for so many years recently, watching people put all of their energy into optimizing their website or optimizing their conversion rate or running Facebook ads, all of which I think is valuable if you're trying to market your business. But as more and more businesses and entrepreneurs start using those same tools, suddenly that's not a differentiator anymore. And so I think we need to get back to some of the old school tactics about really understanding who we are and the value that we provide for our clients, and getting that piece done right makes it so much easier than when you turn to social media or search engine optimization or your website to communicate that. So I really think businesses aren't spending enough time figuring out what makes them stand out. And that kind of was the birth of the remarkability formula.
And what I love that you said really from the beginning is it's that sustainability. How do we stand out online? How do we be remarkable in a sustainable way without having to just keep churning and keep churning and keep churning? I just want to give a shout out to Donna Cravata. Thank you so much for joining us today, Donna. She is calling in from New York. So I say, let's just dig right in. We have a limited amount of time. Can we start with the first lens of find?
Yes. So basically, the process I take people through does go through these four lenses to uncover what makes them remarkable. And the first lens I usually use is the lens of find. And the reason is because it's often the simplest. It doesn't require you to change anything about your business. It's the reason why people chose you already. And so it could be a lot of different things in here. It could be maybe it's your product or your delivery or your pricing or your people, but it's something that really makes you stand out. And one great example is when I bought my first house, I needed to get the house painted. And I'm sure people were like, well, house painting doesn't sound like something that could ever be remarkable. Like maybe you have cheaper prices, maybe you have more reviews on Yelp, but that doesn't make you remarkable. But what this person did, what this business owner did, is they hired a crew of 20 people who would come to your house and paint it. So got the entire house painted in just a day, and then came back the next day or 2 days later and had the same team do it all over again for a second coat. And it was amazing. I mean, it's just like, it looks like an Amish barn raising. And of course, the neighbors took notice, and that got a lot of attention too. And this is something that made him stand out. This was a problem. This was a value to people who didn't want, a team there for a week or more, not showing up on time or anything like that. And it's also hard to replicate. Like, you would have to think twice before you went head to head and hired 20 people on your paint team to go head to head with him, especially in this job market. But really, even back then, it's just a lot to take on. So that was a great remarkability, a great piece of remarkability where he really stood out, and it was hard to compete with him on that particular point.
100%. And like you said, all of the neighbors took note, and I'm sure that they were talking about it and really putting it out there. Incredible way for the visibility, but to just absolutely stand out. Donna says, absolutely, you must know your client. Absolutely. And you are so good at that. So let's move on to the second one, which is focus.
Yes. So focus is all about niching down until it hurts. And I know that everybody understands it conceptually, but the problem is that we always end up trying to be all things to all people. And so the idea of niching down is just reducing, maybe it's your offering or who you're willing to work with or your delivery area, but just continuing to go after a smaller and smaller audience or serving a smaller and smaller pain point until you are the only business serving that particular customer in a particular way. And through that reduction comes remarkability. And an example I often give, very short version of this, is John Lee Dumas and his Entrepreneurs on Fire podcast. And basically, when he started, no one else was doing a 7-day-a-week podcast. And most people at that time thought that was too much. So a lot of people wouldn't have been interested in listening to an everyday podcast. They were happy to do their 1 day a week podcast. All of his friends who were already established podcasters said the same thing. It was good advice, but John felt there was a smaller audience of very passionate listeners out there, and he was absolutely right. And that's just one reason why he was so successful, but it got him a lot of press because people were saying, oh, you should talk to John Lee Dumas. He's doing an everyday podcast. That led to more guests. It led to more listeners. It led to more sponsorship dollars. And that's a big thing, that when we go after a smaller audience, we become much more valuable to them. As an example, 2017, the average U.S. Physician made a very comfortable $249,000 a year in salary, which is great until you find out that a specialist in that same year made $399,000. So $150,000 more a year for being able to serve fewer people. And we reward those people who have said, I'm going to serve a smaller audience. I'm going to serve a smaller geography. I'm going after a more specific, narrow pain point. And we reward those people. So that's another way of standing out, but it also has a lot of other benefits as well.
Niching down is, I agree with you, so very important. But what I hear from my clients when I'm working with them, and I'd love to hear what your clients say, when you're like, okay, let's dig a little deeper, there's some serious resistance, almost some fear that sort of pops up. And my belief is we need to get comfortable with the uncomfortable of trying something new. How do you work your client through that sort of fear zone of really niching down?
Well, sometimes in certain situations, they need to niche down, but only in multiple places. So it might be that they can't just give up an entire audience segment, but I'm like, let's focus some of your communication around this audience and some of your communication around this audience. So I'm not saying that you can only do one thing, but the more painful it becomes, the quicker you're going to be the go-to expert in that particular area. And people do, when it comes to important things, they're going to go for the specialist over the generalist every time. So as long as it's a big enough niche, it's worth going after. And you tend to get a lot better faster when you decide, I'm only going to work with men between the ages of 40 and 50, or I'm only going to deliver within a couple miles of my office, whatever it may be. And it does scare people. And the other approach would be is, let's narrow the communication so we're talking to our ideal customer, no one else. That doesn't mean that you want to attract some other people that might be good fits for you, but it means that you're really focused on that one audience. Like back to John Lee Dumas, he has this avatar. Everything he did was specifically, what would Johnny want? And, or Jimmy, I think his name was, what would Jimmy want? And he would do everything that he thought Jimmy would want. Well, a lot of people who didn't look anything like Jimmy still showed up because it was relevant for them too. So you can still attract a wider audience, but you should be communicating to as small an audience as you can get away with.
And really, he's standing in his brilliance, right?
Yeah.
Being able, so that I think that's even more attractive, is that when people truly own what it is that they do. There are so many times that I see people out there so niched down, like so specific, and they have a massive audience. And it surprises me sometimes, like that teeny little thing, but they are absolutely speaking from their truth, from their authenticity. And that in itself is super attractive.
It's attractive for sure.
Yeah. So the third lens, Forge, which you changed from fashion, right? So I think
Yes.
on a couple of the banners, it did say fashions, but you
yes,
switched it to
it
Forge.
was called a fashion, and then just decided that it was a confusing title and Forge worked better. So just calling it Forge. And the whole idea behind Forge is that often we can create something extrinsic to our main offering, but it should still be in alignment with our mission or values. And that can be something remarkable about our business. And one fun example of this is Barilla Pasta. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely, in the years that I've cooked food for myself, I've overcooked my pasta more than once. And yet every single pasta box in the world tells you exactly how long you're supposed to cook it, but you forget to set the timer, or the phone rings, you get distracted, and suddenly you've destroyed your meal. So Barilla came up with this, I think, brilliant creative idea where they created Spotify playlists that are exactly the length of time of each one of their different pastas. So there's like a mixtape spaghetti playlist that comes in at 9 minutes. There's a boom bap fusilli playlist that's exactly 11 minutes. And when you play these, when you ask your smart speaker to play this, it will play, and it'll be the exact length of time for al dente pasta. And on top of that, each of the cover arts for these playlists was done by an Italian artist.
Of
And
course.
then there's songs included from Italian musicians. And this all kind of is in alignment with Barilla's belief that cooking is art. And of
Mhm.
course, and this is the whole thing, it's extrinsic. Like, you don't need this. You could literally set a timer. You could ask Alexa to set a timer for you. It's going to do the same thing. But by doing this, they got people talking. It was very creative. Anybody who tries to copy them will just look like, oh, yeah, but we've already seen this before. It even gave them a brand new platform to market on that most people wouldn't think about, and that's Spotify. That spaghetti playlist had over 18,000 followers last time I looked. So just, I mean, really remarkable what they did there.
Yes.
You don't need it. It's just an added benefit. For a lot of businesses out there, putting on live events could be a good one. And that's, for me, the Agents of Change conference that we put on in the past and we'll be putting on again in the future is a great example of that, where you do not have to attend the conference to hire Flight New Media or vice versa. But it's in alignment with our idea that digital marketing can help businesses grow. So we put on a conference that's all about digital marketing. We're all about digital marketing. People see me up on stage, basically wearing both hats. And when we ask people, how'd you hear of Flight? Very often the answer is, I've been going to the Agents of Change conference for years. And the nice thing about something like a conference is it is a lot of work to put on an event, as opposed to just
Very.
copying somebody's Facebook tactics.
Mm.
So other agencies in town are probably going to think twice before they try and create their own, full day or 2-day conference around digital marketing. They're going to find their own remarkability. I've kind of like set up a fairly unassailable position for this particular element of remarkability. Another group in town focuses only on e-commerce, or somebody went after their B Corp. All great ideas. It's just, is it in alignment with your mission and values? And is it important to your ideal customer?
And really serving them at a much higher level. They can have such access. I've been to a couple, I think 3 of the Agents of Change events, and I've got to say they're absolutely phenomenal. So when they do come back out, I highly recommend everyone attend.
Yeah,
But
2023
really,
for sure.
to get in the energy of it, right? Just be around it so that we can soak up more of the information, but serving our clients at a higher level from a different perspective. Can you talk a little bit, like, are there a couple of questions for people who have difficulty kind of thinking outside of the box to think, okay, what would that forge piece be?
Yeah, it could be just, something that's keeping in alignment. So a good example might be something like a scholarship. So if there
Mhm.
is something that you do that you're passionate about, that your business is passionate about, think about like Tom Shoes, where you buy a pair of shoes and another pair of shoes goes to a needy child. So, obviously they've got to figure that into their margins and stuff like that. But that's a brilliant idea where you don't have to make this donation. It just happens automatically. It separates them from everybody else. It's pretty remarkable, and it's keeping in line with the mission and values of the company. It also speaks to who we are. We are attracted, and this is true especially from millennials and Gen Z, but we are attracted and loyal to brands that we believe have a similar worldview than we do. So that's why certain people are attracted to going to Lowe's instead of Home Depot, or vice versa. This is why some people choose Ben and Jerry's, because of their social stances. They created an ice cream called Pecan Resist, and profits from that, up to $100,000, went to 4 progressive agencies. Now, obviously, that might turn off some conservative people who don't like that, but the bottom line is it was something that certainly extrinsic. They didn't need to call their ice cream Pecan Resist, but at the same time, it helped them kind of differentiate,
Mhm.
set themselves apart, and attract their ideal customers, who are more than happy, unless they were allergic to nuts, to buy this ice cream and kind of support those things. And on the other side of the aisle, you've got a company like My Pillow. So nobody is going to buy a My Pillow for a good night's sleep. You're either buying it because you support the guy, or you're not buying it because you think he's crazy. But the bottom line is, like, that is very much a product that we buy based on our political alignment in that case.
Our values. There's actually Donna Cravata introduced me to this, the value graphics, David Allison, and we buy things because of what we value instead of we like nuts or whatnot. But the value graphics piece, I think, is just understanding that we make choices because of what we value is so very important to come at that Forge piece from that perspective of really truly like what sets you apart. What is that depth? So that excellent examples. Thank you. Now that fourth piece, the fourth and final is fame, right?
Frame.
Frame.
But
Sorry.
maybe we could add a fifth one. Fame is
We could
good.
have fame.
That actually would fit more into the people side of Fine. But yeah, frame is another, it's almost like kind of a mirror image of Fine, quite honestly, because what we're talking about with frame, I saw Ron's name pop
Okay,
up.
I was going to.
Is it's basically creating a new positioning or reframing what your offering is. So you're already doing this, but maybe you need to position it in a new way that resonates better with your client. And Red Bull is a good example of this. So Red Bull was a product and when it got bought and then they decided we're going to take this product global, they could have just called it a soda. And they could have just put it out there and it would have gone head to head with Coke and Pepsi and it likely would have been crushed. But instead, they shrank it. They shrank the size of the can. They doubled the price. They promoted this one ingredient called taurine that supposedly gave you wings, even though it's more likely that it was the caffeine, but whatever. And they positioned it as an energy drink. And as of 2020, they owned 43% of this new energy drink category, and they made over $6 billion in revenue that year. So this is, and obviously any of these examples, this is not the only reason people are successful, but it does give you an idea of maybe how to position it. Or another good example was a story I read in Matthew Pollard's book, The Introvert's Edge, where he takes on different clients. And one of his clients was teaching Mandarin to kids and adults in California, a woman by the name of Wendy Huang. And Wendy basically had this great business, but all of a sudden, all these low price competitors flooded the market. And suddenly she was really struggling with her margin and even her business. When Matthew came into the scene, he noticed that two of her clients were actually about to be relocated to mainland China, which is why they were taking the classes, and found out that she wasn't just teaching them Mandarin, she was also teaching them Chinese business etiquette and what to expect over there. And she was working with their spouses and children to help acclimate them to their new position. Now, sending somebody to China, relocating them is a huge expense for any company. And for that to fail is just like a huge lost opportunity. So she was really, as Matthew said, setting them up for success in China. And with that, they rebranded her as the China Success Coach. Now, no longer is she competing head to head with other Mandarin speakers just to teach Mandarin. She's teaching business people how to succeed in business in China. And after that, she only went after business people relocating by going to the actual HR people who are handling those transfers. So in other words, she combined frame with focus. And that's a really important thing because as you go through the four frames, you want to go through each of the four lenses rather. Yes, you want to go through all four lenses and then combine them, layer them on top of each other so that you can create a really unassailable position in the marketplace. The more elements of remarkability that you can tie up and then communicate clearly through social media, digital marketing, networking events, what have you, that's going to lead to your success. So everything in marketing becomes a lot easier when you know exactly who your ideal customer is, what they value, how you're going to position your own remarkability to meet up with those needs. Then suddenly you're not paddling against a stream. You're just showing up. People are the right people are immediately attracted to you.
And what I love about this whole all four lenses is it's something that you can continually come back to, right? As things shift, as things shake up, that this is a foundational piece to come back and say, okay, things are changing over here. Let's go back through these four lenses and really approach our social media, our digital marketing, the conversations from a new perspective and with more clarity.
Absolutely. Because things will continue to change, obviously, outside of your company, your clientele, the technologies, what have you. I mean, hopefully this is going to give you some real good core steadiness. But yes, you should always be reevaluating, like have other companies moved in and started to compete with you on some of your elements of remarkability? If so, how do you pivot? How do you change? How do you evolve so you continue to stand out? And by using those 4 lenses, find, focus, forge, and frame, you can really start to hone in on that and come up with a position in the marketplace that no one's going to want to compete with you on. They'll find some other element of remarkability to go after.
Rich, I absolutely love this. It is, just to sort of use it, it is absolutely remarkable to have something that you can continually come back to. I just want to throw Ron back up here. Hey guys, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us, Ron. I appreciate it, especially since I saw a post that you've got something going on your Facebook page. Sorry to hear that. And then Donna, brilliant. Love it. All right. So thank you for sharing all of that. And if I would love to know ask you one question if you have a few more minutes.
Sure.
Okay. What one habit or skill set, Rich, has supported you in living and leading a sustainable life, really being that creative and having it flow?
So I can't say that it's 100%, but what I am always striving for is to create more margin in my life. So with your help, because I did hire you as a coach, you are a fantastic coach. I'll just put that out there for everybody. I really went to work on creating and keeping margins in my life. And I'm not always perfect. It's a constant struggle, but blocking out like Fridays is my big picture day. So just being able to sit there on Fridays and think about working on the business instead of in the business, kind of an idea, or working on a project that's of interest to me, near and dear to my heart. Maybe it's some new technology or new opportunity or a presentation, and just having that big block of time so I can really work on it, and trying to get in my meditation or my workouts during the day. Like, those are the things that really have helped me kind of like avoid being ground down, and really just every day showing up with as much energy and as much passion as I had 25 years ago when I started the business.
That's amazing. 25 years. Congratulations again on that. That's so impressive. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much. Where can people reach out to you if they'd like to connect? Where's the best place?
Sure. Well, if you like podcasts, check out the Agents of Change podcast that I do. If you want to connect with me, I am the Rich Brooks on just about every single platform out there. So feel free to connect with me, especially LinkedIn, which is probably my favorite platform these days to hang out on. But yeah, those are the best 2 ways to find me.
And I do want to just give a quick shout out. Rich is putting together a workbook of some sort about the remarkability formula. So if you would like more information on this, absolutely connect with Rich. And very soon, or I shouldn't say very soon, I don't want to put you in that position, but soon he's going to have a workbook so you can really have something to go by.
So if you want to be alerted, then I would say go to my website, takeflight.com, sign up for our email newsletter. And when those workbooks are ready, and this will take you through the whole process with prompts and everything, then you'll know when that workbook, it's going to be free, but you just need to sign up for the email newsletter to get alerted about it.
And thank you for just being so generous for everyone, knowing that they can go through this alone and have those tools. I just think is so incredibly generous. So remarkable. Rich, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Great seeing you, Lisa. Thank you so much.
And next week, I am on vacation, so we will not be having a live, but on July 13th, I'm going to be having Kelly Daniels talking about those taboo but also necessary conversations. I hope to see you then. Thanks, Rich.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
everyone.